This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as an option for the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. And of course, for those of us living outside those two places, there's easewellness.com, where you can get professionally curated hemp-derived CBD products via the mail in 44 U.S. states. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Monday, June 17th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 744 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news and rants, so let's jump right into it. New York State leaps into today's top stories as yesterday news broke that adult use legalization legislation, more or less written off for this legislative session just last week, appears to be on the verge of maybe happening. Members of the Senate and Assembly have been working all weekend to hammer out a compromise deal, with some issues still unresolved, like how tax revenues will be spent, how road safety can be ensured, and if home grow will be allowed. Yet the New York Post cited an unnamed New York State marijuana expert who pegged the chances of adult use passing at 60%. So there's that. New York State's legislative session wraps up on Wednesday, so if anything is going to happen, it's going to happen over the next few days. A great storyline to keep an eye on. We have details out of Canada for when that nation's legal adult use market will start to see the introduction of edibles, which were banned by the government for the first year of adult use legalization. So we've known for a while now that edibles won't go on sale until at least October, but on Friday, Health Canada issued guidelines that will push back the actual sale of edibles to December. According to those new guidelines, companies wishing to sell legal cannabis edibles will have to inform the government of that fact after October 17th, after which they will then need to wait 60 days to start selling. So mark your calendars for the December 17th debut of the Canadian legal marijuana edibles market. We wrap up today's news up here in Maine, where it appears that stringent new proposed guidelines governing who can and can't own legal marijuana businesses are being relaxed in the face of criticism and a threat of a lawsuit from one of the state's medical marijuana businesses, Wellness Connection of Maine, which is owned in part by multi-state cannabis operator Acreage Holdings. Late last week, a legislative committee approved a version of all rules for adult use sales, which includes a section that requires that at least 51% of any given cannabis company be owned by Maine residents, but does not include language banning out-of-state corporations from controlling those in-state companies. It's a subtle but important distinction. Another good one to read in full for sure, especially if you do any kind of business up here in Maine. Right now, the proposed regulations are headed to the entire House and Senate for a vote, which supporters are hoping will happen before the start of the legislative summer break this Wednesday, June 19th. Assuming that happens, Maine could see its first adult use shops open up early next year, just 4 years after voters approved adult use sales. 4 years. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as an option for the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. Ease is celebrating the LGBTQ plus rights movement this month by donating 5% of its proceeds for June to Out and Equal, an organization that works to expand equality in the workplace. Pop over to ease.com/home to check out a profile piece on legendary medical marijuana activist Mary Brownie, who positively impacted countless lives in the 80s and 90s with the work she did in helping people living with AIDS find relief with the help of her medical marijuana brownies, as well as the care and love and warmth that she generally shared with the people around her. Mary Brownie died at the age of 77 in 1999, leaving behind a large legacy that you should know about if you don't already. I think San Francisco District Attorney Terrence Hallinan said it best during a vigil held a week after Mary's death when he said, quote, "She will one day be remembered as the Florence Nightingale of the medical marijuana movement," unquote. You can read more about Mary Brownie over at ease.com/home. All right, time for the Blitz. Late last week, a letter was sent to congressional leaders by the governors of 18 U.S. states and 2 territories, urging them to pass legislation freeing up banks to work with state legal cannabis businesses. The letter specifically cited the Safe Banking Act, which is set to be voted on soon by the entire House, and that would afford financial institutions protections from federal persecution for extending banking services to state legal marijuana operators. Pop over to Marijuana Moment to read the full letter yourself and to check out which governors signed. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. On Friday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill into law that will expand the state's medical marijuana program by adding in new qualifying conditions like autism, terminal cancer, and epilepsy. The Texas medical marijuana program remains one of the more limited in the nation with the banning of THC products, but it is Texas and baby steps are still better than no steps at all. Alan Brockstein over at New Cannabis Ventures has a good story up looking at the recent decline in the stock price of various multi-state cannabis operators, which have collectively seen a slump in price over the last month or so. I'll be the first to admit that I do not have a good handle on the world of stocks, which is why I appreciate that there are experts like Alan who do. If you dabble at all in pot stocks, you should probably read this one. The state of Maryland has expanded its medical marijuana testing protocols to include testing for heavy metals in products like vaporizers. Up until Friday, medical marijuana cultivators in Maryland had to submit their flower for testing for heavy metals, but not product manufacturers. The state also issued an advisory on Friday warning of the potential for lead contamination in vape cartridges after they've been used. This is one of our industry's bigger issues for sure, so another good one to read, even if you're not in Maryland. Last week, 37-year-old Thomas Franzen started serving a 4-year prison sentence in Illinois for drug trafficking and conspiracy after being arrested in 2014 after taking receipt of 42 pounds of cannabis-infused chocolate through the mail. Mr. Franzen said he used the marijuana to treat the multiple forms of cancer he's been fighting since high school. A friend has set up an online petition asking that Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker commute Franzen's sentence, which you can find a link to over at the Chicago Tribune. No one should go to jail for cannabis, especially someone fighting cancer. Please take the time today to sign this. Michigan-based vertically integrated marijuana company Green Peak Innovations just announced that it is buying Florida-based marijuana company Tree King Tree Farm, another vertically integrated cannabis company, for $48 million. The deal is expected to close later this year following approval by the state. And finally for today, we end on a fun note as the growth op picked up on the widespread presence of marijuana use seen and smelled around the city of Toronto following the win by the Toronto Raptors in the NBA basketball finals. Canada, of course, now has legal adult use marijuana, and its citizens seemingly took advantage of that fact by incorporating it into their post-win celebrations, with a number of media outlets taking note of cannabis smoke and smell among fans. I think this is actually a pretty important cultural shift to note, as even the smell of marijuana was noted in the Raptors changing room following Thursday night's big game. The world is embracing marijuana. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at MJTodayDaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. What do you call a misunderstood monster with a high IQ? Frankenstein. Frankenstein. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Jay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with marijuana today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.